welcome to the One Soccer Nation podcast. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Sydney Cummings. Sydney is a professional footballer currently playing in Scotland for Celtic FC.
Sydney, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. We're so excited to have you here just to share your journey and, motivate other aspiring players. First off, we just want to congratulate you on a great season and winning the Scottish Premier League. We just want to say, how are you and how are you feeling today?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on. I'm doing really well, as we were just chatting offline. I'm headed back to the States tomorrow, so I'm really excited. I think everywhere you go, it's a new chapter and you meet new people. And unfortunately, sometimes you close those doors and you might never see them again or anything like that. But I think every experience that I've had, I've really, really appreciated. And so I'm very appreciative of this past experience, but I'm also looking forward to going home.
Oh, that's great. I'm also excited to go home too.
Yeah.
So, but could we just start off by asking you what age you started playing soccer and why you chose to play that sport, or why you chose to play soccer?
Yeah, so I started playing when I was 4. I have 2 older brothers, so it was just kind of one of those things where they were doing all sports, so I did all sports. I think probably just to keep my parents, to keep us away from our parents and keep us occupied. So they did a bit more than I did, but by the time it got to me, I did soccer, I did gymnastics, I did basketball, and then kind of had to make that decision at around age 9. What are you sticking with? And ultimately, I decided soccer. It just brought me the most joy. I was the best at it out of all 3 of those. I just felt like other things were kind of anxiety inducing, and I just felt the best when I was playing soccer. So my oldest brother went the basketball route. The middle one was a swimmer, and then I was the soccer player.
Wow, kind of all around kind of family.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so cool. Did they both go to college for their sports?
Yeah, so my oldest brother did for 2 years, but then he left and he joined the army. So he was in the army. And then my other brother, actually, the swimmer, made the decision that I think probably just because swimming is so intense, it's so much. He made the decision that he wanted his college experience to be a stereotypical college experience, and he didn't want to be a student athlete. So he swam for the club the club version, not the varsity version at school. So I was the only one that for 4 years, technically 5 if you count my grad year, was a college athlete.
Wow. So you committed to Brown University. Can you kind of just explain to us your recruiting process and why you chose to commit to Brown University?
Yeah, so I started getting recruited when I was about 15, and it was these schools. I was going on these visits and I was seeing these schools. And at 15, I had no idea what I wanted. So you're asked to be making this commitment for that's gonna start in 3 years. And then you're making the commitment for four more years on top of that. And I was going on these visits and I was just no, I'm not feeling it. And I would call my club coach after, and him and I were really close. And the club that I played for, FC Copa, based out of New Jersey, was super big on recruiting. So it was super big on, if you want to go play in college, we will help you do that. And he was a really big advocate for me in doing that. And I would call him after and I'd be I just don't think it was for me. And he was like, why? They're offering you a full ride. It's a great university. What's the problem? And every time I was I'm just not feeling it. And I didn't really have a reason. It just kind of, I mean, sometimes I had a reason, but I wasn't feeling it. And so time went by, my teammates started committing. And then I started feeling okay, I might just have to bite the bullet and pick a school, because then I felt oh, it's getting too late. So Brown actually came to be because I have a cousin who went there. He's much, much older than me, but he went there. And he would just say to me, as I was growing up, he was like, I think you would love Brown. And I was like, I can't go to an Ivy League school. That's never going to happen. I've just created this entire reason as to why. And he would just encourage me, and he would say, if they're at a showcase that you're going to, just send them an email. And so I did constantly, and I never got a reply. And then the way that things kind of work out in the soccer world, I'm sure you both know, is absolutely crazy. It's such a small world. So Kia McNeil, who's now the head coach at Brown, was actually at Northeastern. So she'd recruited one of my teammates She then gets the job at Brown. So she'd been seeing my club team play, and she needed a defender. Like, now she's recruiting for Brown as opposed to Northeastern. And my coach called her and said, "Listen, just come to this game, watch Sydney play, and then take it from there." And that was kind of like the storybook start for me. So it was really just like, if she didn't go to a different school, didn't go to Brown, like, I probably would have gone to a different school. I don't really know where I would have been. And so she saw me play in one showcase. I went on a visit, I think the month after, and then I committed the month after that. So once it happened, it was very quick. But I just had a feeling, like, when I was on campus, I just felt, okay, wow, like, I really like it here. I really like the staff. I believe them. Like, I didn't feel like they were selling me like a false story. And I always joke that every visit that I went on, like a serious one, like an official visit, every visit I went on, it was raining. Like, the weather was so bad no matter where I was. And Brown was the first visit I went on where it was sunny and it was gorgeous. And I just, like, superstition, or like whatever you want to call it, like divine intervention, I was like, no, like, I genuinely think it was meant to be. So I was at Brown for 4 years, starting in 2017, and literally had the best experience possible.
Wow,
Oh,
that's such a good story. But we also kind of had like a similar story, just like where the coach went to, like, the coach was at Harvard and then he went to Maryland and then we ended up committing to Maryland because we like the coach and stuff. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but that's actually a really cool like story about the rain. And then when we
Yeah.
actually, that's so crazy. Oh my gosh.
yeah, and I feel like we can also relate to like how you felt like it was at home. I feel like we felt the same way when we went to Maryland. Like it just felt right. Like we visited other
Yeah.
schools, but like with Maryland, it just felt like I was supposed, we're supposed to be here. So
Yeah,
we can
for
definitely
sure.
understand. Yeah.
But that feeling is definitely like an important feeling that you need to have like visiting schools and stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's something that, like, it's hard to explain to others, but when you actually feel it, you understand it. Like, in your gut when something, like, you've got a voice of doubt, you've got a question mark, like, you're just not
Oh,
sure. And I think when you make, it's such a big decision deciding where you're going to go to college. But again, like, nothing's set in stone. You can always transfer, but I think when you make that decision, like, your gut feeling, like your gut intuition, like, it's so important to trust yourself and the vibe that you feel, because everyone's trying to sell you something. Like, everyone's
oh,
trying to prove, we'll give you the most money, you'll play, all of this stuff. And you get there and it can be completely different. So
yeah.
you have to trust, I feel like I'm in a good environment. I like the school. Like, I know I can study something that I would like. Like, you have to line up everything else so that if the soccer thing doesn't work out for whatever reason, you're still okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and like I feel like even like sometimes you can tell if the coaches are like kind of like giving you like false information. Like I don't know, like I felt like with Ray at Maryland, I don't know, he was just had such a genuine soul, and I feel like that's what also like kind of like encouraged us to go to Maryland as well.
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. It's like that trust. Like, I just trusted Kia the moment I met her. She was
Yeah.
telling me a false story. And our relationship has continued all throughout that, where, I mean, even when I was in college, I'd be in her office all the time. And both of us would just be like, shoot it straight. Like, just tell me the truth, because
Mhm.
I don't want you to waste my time. I don't want to waste your time. Like, we don't need to dance around the political correctness or the politeness. Like, let's talk. And I feel like that is something that I really cherish and I've tried to carry into relationships moving forward. And she's been such a role model for me, just in general, from the first day I met her. So that's something that she was, like, really about, that I really
Yeah.
respected. And it really helped me get through Brown and then make the decision to leave Brown when I did.
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice.
I know I feel
Mhm.
like it's also really important to have that kind of relationship with your coach. I feel like a lot of players don't really have like a good relationship with a coach and their college experience is not really the best. So yeah, I think having that communication with your coach is like really important.
For
But
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Can you just go into just describe what it was?
Sorry about
Oh,
that.
good.
Yeah, so since Brown was an Ivy League, can you just describe to us what it was like going to like an Ivy League school and being like a student athlete at the same time?
Yeah, not as difficult as I think some people think.
Mhm.
There's a joke about the Ivy League that the hardest part is getting in. And then once you're in, like, you don't really know any different. So, I think it's pretty normal in terms of the struggles that you go through as any college student, like it's a big adjustment. You're away from home. Like if you didn't go to boarding school, it's your first time being like truly away from home. You're navigating things by yourself. And the balance of like, you're going to school, but you live on campus, and then you've got like this job, like football's a job when you're there. And so it's just like this weird dynamic, but that's the joke. The hardest part is getting in. And so I think initially, so I majored in English. I'm an English major for my undergrad. And I think initially my biggest thing was like, this is so snobby, but I was like, why am I not getting A's? Like I was like, why am I getting B's on this on these assignments and stuff like that? So I think the biggest adjustment for me school wise was adopting like this new mentality of like, okay, I finished in the top 10% in my high school. Everyone finished in the top 10% in their high school here. So it's like you really have to adjust the way that you think of yourself as a student. Like I could coast by in high school and I was fine. Like I couldn't really coast by, but there was just a balance of like, I don't need to do this assignment. I don't need to read this thing, but I've got to get this done because I've got a game on this day. And so it's really, I think like time management became my best friend. And that was like the biggest way that I survived. And you lean on your teammates and you lean on the friends that you make and all of that to kind of get you through it. But it's really just a balance because the soccer piece isn't changing. Like you have your schedule. This is your schedule. You have your games. Like you have your ambitions, you have your goals. And it's like, if you want to meet those things, if you want to do those things, you have to find a way to balance the school stuff with it. And so I think it was just like a constant give and take of like what would come first. So I did all my assignments, I did everything that I could, but sometimes I left that one thing until later because I had to go get treatment before a practice or something like that. So I think it's really just time management. It was really just balancing, but like truly I didn't know anything else. So then when I got to Georgetown, they were a bit more strict. So I was there for my grad year and they were strict about how many classes you could take in season. So you could only take 3 classes in season. And at Brown, I took 4. I always took 4 classes. And so it was weird because here they are like, okay, you need to craft your schedule, only 3, a lighter load. And I'm like, I know people that took 5 classes while we were in season, like, but it's just because we didn't know any different. So then when I even went to Georgetown, like that balance for me was a lot different where I was like, okay, like I just kind of feel like I'm playing soccer. Like I don't even feel like I'm in school. So it's
Yeah.
really just a matter of like, I really didn't know anything else. And the moment you're in it, you're in it. And you either make it or you don't. So like that was it. I had to make it. Like I had to do it.
Well, that's
So like,
oh, go ahead.
go ahead. Like, Kayla, you go.
Well, I was just gonna say like that's interesting how at Georgetown they only let you took like 3 classes because I was a kinesiology major and a biology major, so um I was taking like 5 classes sometimes, and
Yeah.
sometimes I was literally running to class to training right after class. So like it's cool, like interesting to see how different schools like manage that.
Yep.
And
Yep.
you also manage like you also mentioned time management. I feel like in my freshman year, I was struggling with time management. Like I did not know how to balance, even though I wasn't taking like crazy classes, but I was still struggling how to balance soccer and my classes. And but as the years went on, I kind of mastered it, which was like it made everything a lot easier. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think it was about like finding a groove early on,
Yeah.
and kind of understanding. I also my first semester, it's so funny, my first semester, so I took 2 English classes. So I was in 2 classes where I was like, okay, I really enjoy this, I really like this. And they were easier, like they were on the easier side. And then I took a class that I absolutely positively hated. Like I am not a STEM person at all. I'm way more humanities. And I took this class, it was called Making Decisions. I'll never forget it. And I thought that it was more like psychology and like, why do people do the things that they do? And it was like all probability. Like it was like all math.
Oh,
And I hadn't taken a math class. So Brown has an open curriculum. I don't know if this is really well known, but basically you can take whatever you want. You just have to make sure you fulfill your requirements for your degree. So how a lot of schools will have, your first 2 years, you're taking like those basic classes that everybody's got to take. We don't have that. So you can really craft your schedule to try new things and they do it to encourage you to try new things. So like, if you think you want to do this, but you kind of have an interest in this, take this class so that you can see how it goes. And then you also have the option to take everything pass fail. So that way, if you're like, okay, I'm kind of interested in this, but I'm not really sure. I don't really want to have to worry about what my grade is. I'll just take it pass fail. So I took this class, making decisions pass fail. And I remember calling my mom after the final. And I was like, I think I just failed my first class. Like, genuinely, I think I just failed. And so that was probably like that class probably was the hardest thing for me my freshman year. And it was my freshman fall where I was in this class where I was just struggling. Like, I was just having the hardest time. I was like, it doesn't make sense. I would go to office hours and he would literally be like, I can't help you. Like, I've explained this in class. I'm like, well, that's your job. Like, your job is to help me. I'm not getting it. And I would do assignments with my teammates and we would literally have the same answers and they would get a 100 and I would get a 50. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, I just like really didn't understand. So I think that was another learning curve for me my freshman fall while balancing soccer. Like, I was taking this class that I absolutely hated. And so I knew it wouldn't matter. I knew it had nothing to do with my degree. And so it was like really I just had to pass it. And so it was like really managing, how much time am I going to give to this thing that could literally drain all of my brain power? How much time am I going to give to the classes that are actually going to matter in terms of my degree? And then how much time am I going to give to soccer? Like, how am I going to balance all of that? And so I do think that Brown sets you up, if you do it properly, I think it sets you up to be in a good position. Because had I not taken that class pass fail, I would have been so stressed. I would have been like out of my mind. Like, what do I do? And so I think, again, like when we talk about time management, it was also like, I tried something new. I hated it, but I put myself in a position where it was like, okay, that I didn't know 100% what I was doing. And so I feel like that was kind of like the embodiment of my freshman fall. Like, I didn't really know what I was doing about anything, but like the one thing I was really secure in was soccer. And so I think that made me like a bit more comfortable to screw things up socially and, screw things up with academics and whatever, because I knew, come 3 p.m. when I'm on my way to practice, like, I've got it. I'm secure. And so I think that that also probably helped.
Oh, wow. I honestly feel like I took the same decision-making class and I hated it too. Like,
Hated it.
it was so hard. It just made no sense. But
No sense. Yeah, probably.
yeah, I think that was one of my master classes that we had to take, but it was honestly, I don't even know how I passed.
Mhm.
But no,
Like, it just happens sometimes, and you're like, okay, file that away and don't ask questions and move on.
that's literally. Well, you mentioned that about the curriculum being different in Brown and Georgetown. Are there like any other differences that you notice, like being in the Big East and in the Ivy League, like even soccer wise?
Yeah, no, for sure. So, COVID hit my junior year. So my senior year was like that really weird year where they like, some schools played, some schools didn't play. The Ivy League opted not to play at all.
Yeah.
So I was stuck in a really hard position where, I finished out my senior year, like no way was I ever going to leave. And then I was stuck in a hard spot where it was like, okay, the Ivy League has this really dumb, outdated rule where if you can't redshirt, so like if you want to redshirt or like the equivalent, you have to take a semester off. So I know a lot of people that were taking off a semester and then we're going to come back for like the fall of what would be considered your grad year, but you're still technically a senior. And I just like, for some reason, I was like, that sounds terrible. I was like, I don't want to do that. And I was like, I have such a good opportunity here. I love Brown. Like, I owe so much to that program and like for who I am, and I wouldn't change a thing. But I was like, I have a chance to go get a master's for free. I have a chance to go play at a different school. And I had kind of just done everything I'd wanted to do my junior year. So like I was an All-American, we won the conference, I played an NCAA tournament. Like I had done such great things where I was kind of like, I want to see if I can do that somewhere else. So, Kia and I were on the phone and she just said, enter the portal. She said, and I'm telling you this knowing you're going to get picked up. But I think it's what's best for you, which I think just kind of goes back to her character and why I know I made the right decision to go there. And so, I'm talking to all these schools right away, and I'm like, oh God, like what am I looking for? And the reason why I ended up picking Georgetown as opposed to a lot of the other schools that were recruiting me at that time was because it was very similar academically. Like Georgetown's not an Ivy, but it is still like a very prestigious, hard academic school. And that is something that I've always prided myself on. Like I enjoy being academically challenged. And so that was academically, I felt like they were pretty similar. I think a master's program is always going to be different than an undergrad program, no matter what school you're looking at, even if it's the same school. So I think academically, it was probably a bit different. Being in a master's program was a lot more laid back than being in your undergrad program. A lot more like people oriented, team oriented, and doing a lot of different things. Like it was the first time I had taken courses different from Brown, where it was like, this is like mandatory, like you have to take this. Whereas Brown, it was like you had to fit a criteria, and there were a bunch of classes that would fit that criteria. Like there wasn't just one. So that was the first time that I was like, okay, like I have to do this, like I have to pass this class. And so like I have no choice. And so that was a bit different academically. And then I would say football wise, very, very different. I had two very different experiences. I think the thing that remained consistent was me. Like I played, I did well. Like that was the same across both universities, but very different team dynamics. Georgetown was super different from Brown in the sense of like, if you go to Brown, because Ivy Leagues don't have athletic scholarships, so like if you're going to Brown, you're going like because you love it. Like you are going because like this is what you want to do. And a lot of people do end up quitting. Like a lot of people are like, it's not for me, it's hard, whatever. Okay. When you go to Georgetown, like if you quit, you lose your scholarship, like you lose the money. So like people don't quit, they ride it out. And so it was just a very different dynamic in terms of like, some people really did, you could tell, didn't want to be there. Other people like were giving their life for this program. And so like that dynamic was a bit different, and like finding where you fit in that was a bit different. Football wise, like skill wise, Georgetown had a lot more quality players. I think the reason why we did so well at Brown was because we really cultivated a culture and an environment. Whereas the reason why I think Georgetown did so well is because they were great athletes who wanted to win. So it was just a very different cultural dynamic, a very different skill dynamic. At Brown, Abby, who's a mutual friend of ours, we would joke all the time, and like we would compete against each other because that was just the standard that we kind of held ourselves to. I remember my first day at Georgetown, I called her and I was like, I am not the best. Like, I am not the best player here. And a lot of that had to do with confidence and just like finding your groove and like getting into it. But I would say like so many differences. And then the one that I really struggled with, I have no problem being candid about this, was the diversity aspect. Like our team at Brown was so diverse in thought, diverse in background, diverse in color. Like we were just so diverse. And that was something that we used to joke about because the Ivy League is very, very white. And we would joke about that and we would say diversity wins because we were winning. And I mean, it was true. Then I got to Georgetown and there was one other girl of color. She was a walk-on. She never played. She never traveled, anything. So, we would go away and it was like just me. And I just felt like I was back in my childhood self. I grew up in a really small white town in New Jersey. So I have very distinct memories of like putting my hand in the huddle and it all being white except for mine, like, just like childhood trauma relative to race. And so I was like sitting there and I was like, I'm doing the things I want to do. And I was like, but this is just so weird. Like, it was just so weird for me to kind of like be transported back into like that childhood, a bit self-conscious, like not feeling like I truly fit in. Yeah, and I just feel like that aspect was something I had to overcome. And I think that I was really lucky at Brown. Like I feel like I was really privileged to be around the people that I was around, to have that group that I was around for so many years, that going back to Georgetown was kind of just like your bubble was popped. Like this is reality. Like you're gonna work in places where diversity is different than what you're used to, or whatever the case may be. And so long story short, that was basically like a bit of a difference that I felt between the two universities, and they were both amazing. I loved both of them. Like I cherish my memories at both of them. but I love them both for very different reasons. And I think that's still kind of incredible. Like, I think that just goes to show the power of football, like the power of soccer, that you can have two very different experiences and still have an amazing time at both that I wouldn't change for anything, either time.
No, I really love how you mentioned diversity because I feel like for me and my sister, like that was a big thing for us when we're going through the recruiting process. Like
Yeah.
we're looking at like how diverse the teams were. Um, and even like playing club, we also were used to playing on teams where it was like a mix, like a mixture of different diversities. And then I
Hmm.
also had the opportunity playing in France here, like where it's not super diverse. Like I'm literally
Yeah.
the only black person on my team. Everyone else is like either African or um whites, French, sorry, whatever. Yeah, so it's like I like how you said like you can still excel in like different environments. It's just all depends on like your confidence and like just kind of taking in like where you are and just not where you are or just like taking in the environment that you're in and kind of just I'm just gonna do the best I can here, like no matter the situation, like type of thing.
Right. Yeah. And it was kind of just a matter of, this is something, diversity was really important to me as well in my recruiting process when I was going for undergrad. And I had made the decision when I was going for my grad year. I sat down and I thought, what's important to me? And the first thing that was important to me was the degree I was getting. The next thing that was important to me was the level of soccer I was going to be playing. I wanted something that was challenging. I wanted something that was not a step down, potentially even, or a step up. Like those were the two things that were important to me. And I wanted to live in a place where I was like, okay, I like living here. I didn't want to be in the middle of nowhere, Idaho. And so those were the three things that were important to me. And I did not put diversity on that list
Mm,
because it was only a year. Like I knew it was only going to be a year. And so when I was in that position, I was like, you know what? Like I can't even be mad. Like I can't even be mad because like I didn't prioritize it because I had other priorities that was different than when I was in undergrad because I knew I was spending 4 years at this place. I knew what was important to me. And it's not to say that, diversity was no longer important to me. It's just I ranked three other things higher. And so I put myself in that environment. I've been in this environment before. I'll be in this kind of environment in the future. So, how do I navigate that? How do I still be successful? How do I make a mark? How do I leave an impact? Like, none of that changes. So, it was just a matter of adjusting my mentality of being like, again, my brown bubble got popped. Like, it's not always going to be like that. And then, how do you move forward and how do you adjust? So, even though it was so, so different, I'm also really grateful for it because I mean, even now in Scotland, I'm living in Scotland. Like, there aren't really Black people in Scotland. So it's like, you have like you're making that adjustment
yeah.
again. And like, that's okay. Like, all of that is okay. So, like I said, I completely agree with you in terms of diversity and how important that is. But regardless of your environment, like, you are still you. Like, you still need to be successful. You still need to find a way through it. And that was kind of what that was about in terms of diversity there.
Yeah, I even feel like even you being going to Georgetown and being around predominantly white people, I feel like it also teaches you how to like navigate through different environments. Because I feel like I'm in Denmark, I'm in the same situation. It's predominantly white as well, and like I'm the only black person. So it's like kind of like when you put yourself in positions where it may be a little bit uncomfortable for you, you kind of learn how to like, embrace yourself more and like embrace the differences that you have. So it's like I kind of like that. I kind of like the fact that I'm in this position because although I'm used to being in environments of different ethnicities and stuff, I feel like sometimes you get to like just embrace your differences at the same time. So yeah, I
It's
feel like
also a
it's
learning experience. Like, you learn about other people. And I think like that was such a big thing for me at Georgetown as well, because, at Brown, we were all so different and you would learn all these different things, but everybody's got their friends or whatever. And so when I went to Georgetown, it was like, I'm only here for a year. I need to find a way to fit in. And it was about learning. The girl I befriended was actually a freshman. So my best friend on the team was a freshman and I'm a fifth year. But it was just because she I felt like was teaching me so much about, not everybody's got this kind of background. And, she was from Colorado. And so, I'm an East Coaster through and through. So it was like just learning these different things about these different people. And it was just really, really interesting, I felt like. And so, it was different. But like you said, it was, what am I learning from this environment as well? And I think that that kind of gets you through everything. Everything's a learning experience. It's just about how you think about it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Uh, so you spoke about playing in Scotland. Could you kind of just talk about any challenges you face, like transitioning from college to like the professional environment?
Yeah, for sure. Massive challenges in so many different avenues. So after Georgetown, I was drafted in the NWSL and I was drafted to Louisville. So, we're talking about diversity. I never in a million years thought I would end up in Kentucky. And I was in Kentucky and I was finishing my grad program online. So I'm still a student and basically like trying out for this team because unless you're basically drafted in the first round, you're not getting a contract right away. Like you go, it's basically just an invitation to preseason. Um, and I struggled, like looking back, I really, really struggled mentally, emotionally. Like my birthday happened during that time and we had a game. So my birthday's on the 5th of March, and I think we had a game on the 5th in like the morning, early afternoon, and we were off the next day, and I flew home. Like it was not a cheap flight. I flew home because I literally was like, I miss my family so much. Like I'm having such a hard time. And when I came back, I cried. Like I cried the entire flight back from New Jersey to Kentucky. Like I was just really, really having a hard time. And I think a lot of that was because I had put myself in such good positions to be in really good environments with a really good coach. Um, and I just like really struggled. The coach never spoke to me. The first time we spoke was when he told me that they weren't keeping me. And so it was just like a really difficult environment when, you screw up a pass and I thought I was going to die. Like I literally thought these girls were going to kill me. And it's, not a knock on anybody personally. It's just like that environment is so cutthroat. Um, and so I really struggled with, so I didn't sign with Louisville. And then I was like, okay, what am I doing now? And so that period, like that hiatus of like wanting to play, but not knowing what was next. At that time, I wasn't super comfortable going to Europe. Like I wasn't super comfortable being in a place where I didn't speak the language or, political climates were tense. And so I was like, I'm not super comfortable with that. So that was like the big difficulty, I think, initially, like thinking that things were just going to work out because they always had.
Yeah.
But again, I think that's a lot of your perspective. I don't think I was meant to be there. And so after that, I actually ended up going for a trial at San Diego. And I was a national team replacement contract. I had a national team replacement contract there. And then when my contract ended, they asked me to stay. So they basically said, listen, like, we don't have a roster spot anymore. It's towards the end of the season, but like, you've been such a good asset. We want you to stay. And for me, I felt like that I was like, okay, like I was playing like the best football I'd been playing to the point at that point. I was like, it's still that competitive environment, but like it was a bit more healthy, a bit more happy. And I just felt like I was doing really well. And then Australia came along while I was there. And I was like, listen, like I've got to jump on this. I've got to go. And I think the Australia thing, the biggest struggle there was like friendships and relationships. So my boyfriend and I at that time, we were together for 4 years. And I think that move to Australia was going to be like that really just kind of like broke down our relationship. So I moved literally across the world, freshly out of a relationship, not around like the time difference with my friends and family was so bad. And so I'm in this new place, I'm not going to see them for the holidays. Like I wasn't coming home until almost a year later. And I was so excited. Like I was like, this is going to be so awesome. And so I think again, like it was just the relationship thing at that time was a really big learning curve for me. How do I make time for my friends when I'm away? How do I manage my family? Because life goes on. I'm missing holidays, I'm missing events, like things are happening without me. Like, how do I manage that? And how do I have fun? And how do I perform? And how do I enjoy living in this new country? And so I think for me, like life-wise, Australia was probably challenging in that regard. Then I found my group of friends. I never wanted to leave. Like that part then became really easy. So then the hard part became the football part. Then it became, I'm not performing at a consistent level like I'm used to. What's going on? Why am I struggling with these different things? So everywhere I've gone, I just feel like I've had different things that I've worked with, different things that I've struggled with. Um, but every time I look back so fondly. So then when I went to Scotland after, and obviously there's like, I trained with Gotham in between there and, whatever. I went to Scotland and it was the first time I had dealt with injury, like serious injury in my career because, I'd had niggles here and there, but it always worked out really well. Like, you know, I sprained my ankles all the time and I had one really gnarly, nasty one. I was back within a week. Like it was just the things that you did in college because it was like 3 months. That was it. Like you find a way to make it work for 3 months. Then I'd been really fortunate when I had gone to Australia that all my injuries were things I could play through. So then here I was in Scotland and we were going through a really hard, series of games and it was a cut match. So we were prepping with PKs and I took a penalty and I tore my groin and the day before the game. And it was like the most freak thing. It hurt so bad. And like I couldn't walk. So it was like this whole new dynamic where like now I've got this injury that I've got to rehab. Then came Christmas break. Then during Christmas break, my coach left. So then I had a new manager come in. So it's like the new manager comes in and like my minutes were cut. So then I'm dealing with that for the first time. Like that's the first time I've never not played in a match. So it's like all these new things that you're dealing with at different times. And I think I can always look back really fondly. Like I can look back at every experience I've had and say, I learned this. This was really cool. This really sucked. Like, but it is what it is. Like it's all just part of the journey. So I think everywhere I've gone, very, very different experiences, different trials and tribulations, but everything that I think has made me like a very well-rounded footballer. Like I feel like I've kind of had all the experiences I've wanted to have and I've had all those things that I've done and I've accomplished some pretty cool things as well. So I think everywhere you go, there's something new. There's some new challenge. And I do think that's kind of exciting. I do think that's a part of that's exciting about being a footballer. Like it's never stagnant, but also
Mhm.
sometimes that really sucks.
No, yeah. Yeah, I feel like be when I know when I became like a professional soccer player, I realized like throughout my journey, like right now, I know it's kind of short, but I realized that like I feel like you go through things for a reason and like every situation that you've gone through it teaches you something and that you can carry that into your next experience. Because like I
Sure.
feel like for my first professional career, it wasn't the best experience, but I feel like I became like stronger mentally and more confident in myself just because I feel like to get through that experience, I feel like I had to know like how good I was, even though other people didn't believe in me or see that in me. I had to know for myself, like, I know I'm good and I may have some things that I need to work on, but I know where I can be and what I can become if I just continue to believe in myself. So I definitely can understand that too.
No, and I definitely agree with you. And I think, in college, I was a captain for 2 years and there were times that I didn't understand, like people would come, I've got this problem, I'm not playing, blah, blah, blah. And I would say to Abby was also a captain with me. And I would say to Abby, I'm like, you're dealing with that. Because in my head, I'm like, you're not playing because genuinely look at the people in front of you and do you think you're better than them? The answer is
Mhm.
no. And I just like really didn't have a lot of compassion for it. And I just like really didn't understand. Like I wasn't very empathetic towards it. And so I was like, Abby, that's you. Then I got into the position where I was like, okay, I'm not playing. And it just gave me a different perspective where I was like, listen, I don't think that I'm necessarily better than the people that are playing over me. I just want a shot. Like, that's kind of it. And so I had a different appreciation for the girls that used to come and say, I'm not playing, blah, blah, blah. But I still felt the same way that I felt. Like I literally sat down and I said, am I better than this person? And I said, I don't think so. Actually, no, I don't. And so it didn't become about, I want to play, like, why aren't I playing? I should be playing. This person's playing fine. I just so happen to be underneath them. Like, and it's not necessarily because they're better or anything. So I think you're so right. Like, that's when your self-value and self-worth comes in, because it's like, listen, I'm not gonna let, people, a coach came in, she picked this person, didn't pick me. I'm not going to let that deter the things that I want to accomplish, how I feel about myself. And yes, some days you're down in the dumps and you're like, I'm so bad. I'm going to quit. I shouldn't be like, you're going to have those days. But I think that's where like the mental piece, like you're talking about, really, really came in, and like where I really had to lock in. And I think because I had such a bad experience my first go around of playing professionally and feeling like I was literally like dirt on this guy's shoe, I felt like that really shaped me mentally, where I was like, no, I want to do this. Like, you're not going to, like, this isn't going to stop me from doing what I want to try to accomplish and what I want to try to do. And I've kind of just gone with that every single time. And I
Yeah.
think that's like that mental piece. Like, people talk so much about, oh, we're athletes, like we're in such good physical shape. Like, the mental piece is the hard part. The physical shape, like all that stuff will come. The physical shape, running, even your technical, like it'll come. All of that is there. That just needs to be developed. But the mental piece, that's the hardest part every single day.
Yeah, you're definitely like dealing or battling with like the mental piece every day. Like
Yeah.
the if your mental's not there, your performance is not going to be at 100% like at all. So I definitely
Yeah.
learned that this year because I came in like after preseason and I wasn't starting in the beginning of the season. And I was kind of dealing with like, why am I starting? Like, what am I doing wrong? But instead of thinking like that, I kind of switch my thinking like what can I do better and like how can I contribute to the team so I can start, and just having that way of thinking kind of shifted my mind to be more positive and like focus on like something for the week, focus on something for for that set specific training, and it helped me to kind of like improve throughout the season and also like starting. So
For
it's,
sure.
yeah,
And
just
I don't know about you guys, but I felt like when I was in college, if I was like going through something mentally, I was fine. I could still coast by.
yeah,
Like,
Right? Yeah.
my worst was still better
yeah,
than some people's best. And I was like, I'll be fine. Like, it's not going to affect my spot. It's not going to affect, I could literally be going through the worst thing and I'm
Yeah.
having a stellar performance. And at this level
yes.
now, no, like it does not work that way. And that was like a big reality check for me. Like, I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
Yeah,
No,
no, I agree. Like you can't coast through it. Like you kind of have to deal with the mental problems, and then like on the field, it won't kind of affect your performance. But I don't know why it's like that. It's so crazy to me.
I just feel like in the professional world, like everyone is good, and
Hmm.
like you just have to be at your best every day, every training
Yeah,
session, every game. You have to be at your best because one slip up, someone could literally easily just take your spot. It's like a
yeah,
business, so so like you just it's very much a learning. You like it's like honestly really nice that you get to learn that throughout your journey because it definitely helps you grow as a person as well. So
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Could you just describe the emotions that you felt, winning the Scottish Premier League? I feel like that's such a, huge accomplishment. So can you
yeah.
just tell me how you
Yeah.
felt?
Yeah. I mean, it was awesome. I think that day itself, it came down to goal differential. So we had the same points. It was between us and Rangers. So we had the same amount of points, and it literally was just coming down to goal differential, assuming everyone won out.
Mm.
And our last game was against Hibs, and when we'd played Hibs earlier in the season, it was a tough match. Like, it was a tough match. So no way were we stepping into this match thinking, oh, we've got it in the bag. But I think vibes were really good, and we were like, okay, like this is it. Win and we win, because like we were so far ahead on goal differential that nothing else, like all that we needed to do was win this match. And time was going by and time was going by. We hit the post. Time's going by, time's going by. They hit the post. Time's going by, time. Like, this game is freaking dragging on. And I think it got to a point probably around the 80th minute. It's still 0-0. And it got to a point where everyone was like, we might have just screwed this up. Like, this might be it. Um, 85th minute, and everyone's like, oh my God, like there's no way. Some girls on the field are crying and we're like, no, like everyone needs to like get it together. Like there is still time. Oh my gosh, 89th minute we score.
Wow.
And so I think it was just this feeling of wow, like we thank God like we actually did it. But also kind of this feeling of like you never had the doubt, but like you let it creep in, like we're talking about that mental piece. You let it creep in for a second, and then all it takes is one moment.
Mhm.
Um, and so that was incredible. And playing at Celtic Park, because obviously, as I'm sure you guys have dealt with, there's big disparities between men and women's football, even on the same club. So this game, we were really fortunate to play at the men's home ground, like the arena that they've built for the club. And so I think the atmosphere was just great. Doing something like that is not a small accomplishment. It's a really long season here. And I was in a similar boat. I came in after preseason, like I came in a couple games in. Um, and so it was a bit of a different experience for me because I wasn't there from the beginning. But everything that you go through, I'd only missed like about a month. So everything that you go through is really hard. Like it's really hard. And then it comes to the end and like you have a chance to win it. And when I was in Australia, we had played in the final and we ended up losing pretty bad, but we'd ended up losing. And I remember after that game, like not even feeling upset. Like I felt like we'd accomplished it was the team's first time in the league. And I just felt like we'd accomplished so much. And it's really hard to do. And I think doing it, I then had like a newfound appreciation for it's hard to get to the final. It's hard to perform in the final, but then it's even harder to win it. And I think it just made me have a newfound appreciation. And I was so, so happy for the girls. Like there are some people who would like bleed green. Like they are just such big Celtic supporters. It's a very big thing in Scottish culture that you're either a Celtic fan or a Rangers fan. So some of these girls have literally grown up going to matches with their parents and like I was just so, so, so happy for so many of them, especially because some of them had only ever played for this club. Um, so I think a lot of times too, especially when your role changes, right? Like I'd played every minute in Australia. My minutes got severely cut in January for Celtic. And so you take on a new role. And I think in that new role, it was about finding appreciation for like, if I didn't show up every day at training, these girls wouldn't have been in the position that they were in to go 90 minutes and to score that goal and, all that stuff. So I think it was just about finding a new appreciation for the role that you played to get to the stage that you were at and feeling like it was bigger than myself. Like I was happy, but I was even happier that these girls got to accomplish their dreams. Like I wanted it for them. I didn't really want it for me. I wanted it for them. And so I think it was just really special in that regard to feel like, oh, I'm a part of something way, way bigger than myself. And that was really special.
I really love the way that you kind of, like you're saying you didn't play that, like your minutes got cut. I like the way that you kind of just changed your mindset and didn't really make it about you because I feel like a lot of people will like sit at home and be angry, but I love the way that you kind of just embraced it and kind of, weren't really thinking about you. You were thinking about, how can you still help everyone else? I actually really like that because I feel like that's kind of how I would want to that's kind of how I kind of acted in my first with my first team in France. Like I didn't get a lot of minutes either, and I kind of was just like, how can I be better? How can I still compete? And I feel like I didn't really make it about me. I just made it about how can I help everyone else at the same time. So I really liked how you um,
Yeah.
said that.
Yeah. And I think it's a balance, right? Because like some days are harder than others. Some days I would come home and I'd be crying and I'd be like, this isn't fair. I don't understand. And that's okay. Like you're going to have your ups and you're going to have your downs. But I think the thing that was really important to me is I was able to separate me from the team. I need to
Mhm.
do whatever needs to happen in order for this team to succeed. And that means be myself, do the best I can, show up every day. And then the other thing about myself was like, this isn't permanent. Like I'm not stuck. So if I get down in the dumps and I decide this sucks, I hate it, and I let that mental piece affect the physical piece, I'm going to have such a big hole to dig myself out of come my next thing. And that was kind of, I hit that point where I was like, okay, this might not be working out for me here, but whatever comes next, I need to be prepared for. And so it was just that balance of help the team, be myself, do what I can, but also I need to get better every single day. I need to work on the things that I want to work on. And I think when it kind of like took that stress off of like, I was like, stop fighting for something that you know you're not going to get. Like, just accept that. Stop fighting for something. And, you know, I still played, but it was like not to the same degree that I'm used to or I had been. And so I think when I just took that expectation off, where it's like, you know, fight to start, fight for minutes, where it was like, the manager's going to make whatever decision they make. Whatever I do isn't necessarily going to affect that. If I just show up every day, that's the best thing that I can ask for myself. So it was really just a matter of like, what do I then want to work on and be comfortable screwing up at practice? Because it's not like I'm screwing up and losing a starting spot. And so how can I make this about getting better for whatever comes next as well? And I thought that piece kind of helped me accept my new role and then helped me understand, you know, if I'm still trying to get better as an individual, and like I'm just gonna as default be helping the team as well. So it's just about balancing those two mindsets every single day, which I know sounds like I'm probably making it sound so easy. It was really difficult. It was really, really hard.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it was worth it, obviously. And so, you know, winning and seeing everybody crying and like so happy, I was like, oh my God, like I just love you guys. I'm so happy for you. And so it was just nice to like not feel that kind of pressure and to enjoy this thing with my friends and go out and celebrate and then just be like, you know, I helped in whatever form or fashion, like we all played a role.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like playing freely is so important and just getting rid or stop thinking so much about like what others are thinking about how you're playing, kind of just play, like just play sport that you love and yeah. So
Yeah. It's like eliminating all the pressures that
yeah,
come with
no pressures.
just
Yeah,
enjoy
and
the
there's so much more when you're playing at this level versus when we were younger. Like there's just so many pressures and it was a lot of it was just sitting down and being like, what's the self-induced pressure and what's the actual pressure that I'm receiving? Because so much of it was self-induced because I was like, I'm not going to change my manager's decisions. Like she's going to make her decisions and she's going to decide and she's going to do them. And I will waste so much of my energy and well-being if I'm sitting there trying to manipulate and change and control when I have no power. I have no power in this situation. And sometimes it's just the hand that you're dealt. And like some people get dealt that in college, some people get dealt that their first time around, some people get dealt that their last time around. And so it's just like when it comes to you, because I feel like inevitably it does, when it comes to you, like how do you move forward and how do you go forth? And my dad has, you know, my dad likes to give amazing advice, he thinks, but the best advice I think my dad has ever given me is he has said to me, some people will not like you because you have curly hair. Some people will not like you because you're taller than them. Like people will just decide. They'll just make these decisions and you have zero control. You have zero control over it. And so his advice to me has always been like, you move how you move, you be how you are, how you were raised, how you decide, like you are you, regardless of what other people do, regardless of how other people feel, you cannot control their brain. And I feel like that was something I really embodied where I was like, literally, I might not be getting played because X, Y, and Z. Someone said something, I did like, whatever. I'll never know. And it's okay. And I might just not be getting played because these people are better and that's okay. Like, and so it was just really accepting the fact that like at the end of the day, I'm still going to be me and it doesn't like all these things I can't control. So I need to focus on the things I can control. And that was showing up every day at practice. That was getting better. That was helping. That was cheering. That was all of that stuff.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
that's really wise words like that everyone needs to know.
Wow.
Like that's so important. Just controlling what you can control, and what you can control is yourself. So, yeah.
Mm.
But just transitioning, so you also represented the Guyana National Team.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
how do you feel like that like shaped you as a player, as a leader on the field?
Yeah, so my dad's from Guyana. So my dad came to the States when he was 14.
Uh,
And when I was a freshman in college, Kia had received a phone call and email. I'm not really sure how it all went down, but she just said, "Hey, listen, I know your dad's not from the States. I can't really remember where he's from or whatever." But she said, "I had someone reach out to me. and I'm just going to send you the information. And it all happened so quick. That was like in the spring, the end of the spring semester. And in a couple of weeks, I like was going through the process to get my passport, was headed over to Guyana, like this whole thing to go play in World Cup qualifiers. And so my parents couldn't go. So I'd been to Guyana one time prior to then, when I was younger. My parents couldn't go because my middle brother was graduating from college. So my dad's oldest brother lived there, and then his second oldest brother went with me because him and I were really close. So he went with me. And so I'm like navigating this process of getting my passport. Guyana is not a very developed country. So it's like managing safety, being around all these new people. And it was so weird because I was put in this environment where I was young. I was definitely one of the younger people there the first time I went, but I also had a ton of experience. And so it was like this weird balance for me of like, there were some people who were older that I butted heads with because I will always be me. Like my dad has always said, I will always be me. And then there were some people that were older that were like, "Oh, you're going to help us. Like you are going to be a good asset to this squad." And it was a really interesting experience the first time around. I struggled with the mentality, the Caribbean mentality when you're playing at that level, um, differs depending on what team you're on. And so not everybody's the most technically sound. And you're dealing with some players who are not technically sound on opposing teams, I mean, who are not technically sound, but are so freaking athletic. And so it's about managing that balance of, especially as a defender, especially as a center back, it's like, I'm dealing with this forward who will smoke me every day of the week. But I'm not just trying to boot the ball, but the girl who's playing to my right isn't the most technical. And this forward can really cover that distance. So I had to really try to understand. I just like could not agree with my coach's philosophy and about the way I was like, why are we sitting back? Why are we doing this? And I just like really, because we were talented. And so I just really didn't understand that. And so when you asked me about leadership and growth, I had to grow so much playing for the Guyanese national team because I was just trying to bring the mentality that I knew, which has always been like, when you're playing in the States, some people might not have the most technical ability, but like everyone's pretty much here. And so I was trying to bring that mentality to a squad where not everybody was here. And so as I've grown up in the program and some people have left, started families, quit playing football. I've had to grow in terms of, what do I do for this team? And I think a big thing, so I missed a window because of injury when I was here in Scotland. And the last match, I actually ended up missing because Celtic didn't release me. They wouldn't release me. And so it was about, what can I do? What's my role, even though I'm not there? And when I am there, how am I helping to make the program better? And as I've gotten older, I've definitely taken a bit more of a leadership role. And I still had that when I was younger, but it's just a bit different now that I'm older. And I think the biggest thing that I had to learn was how do I help? We've talked a lot in this episode about like the mental piece. And it was about how do I help these girls understand the mental piece? Because when you compete at different levels in different countries, sometimes it just comes to like that grit. And a couple of my teammates here, we've talked about it, like there's just something about playing in the States that you just have this grit. Like if I'm battling this girl, I don't care if she's better than me, faster, prettier than me. I do not care. You're not getting by me. Like I will pull you like anything. And it's just like that extra bump is really freaking hard and all of that. And so, I felt like girls were getting knocked off the ball and they're dragging their feet. And recently in a window with Guyana, I came into the locker room and I freaking lost it. And I was like, do you want to win or no? Because like, why are we wasting our time if this is how we're going to act, if this is how we're going to play? And I think a lot of times when I'm there with Guyana, it's an incredible experience. Like it's such a privilege to represent a country where, especially like not actually being born there, not being from there, it's such a privilege to see these people every once in a while and to go back to where my dad is from because like all of that is just so deep in my roots. and I don't get to see it every day. So when I do get to see it, I have like a really, really deep appreciation for it. Um, and then it's like the other piece of I'm not coming here to lose. Like, I'm coming here to win. Like, we have such incredible opportunities constantly to play different teams and people from a ton of different places and just like build the Caribbean as well. Like, that's a big conversation that we're having amongst teams because you have Jamaica who's doing really well and like Haiti's doing really well. But it's like, we need to build up the level in general, like, because the world needs to catch up. Like, you've got to find your way up. And so, playing for the Guyanese national team is such an experience, especially had a coaching change. And that has come with like a lot of different emotions and feelings. Have had a lot of girls move on where I felt like they weren't appreciated enough. A lot of the older girls, like they weren't appreciated enough. And they move on. And so then it's like slowly because you don't see each other every day. You don't have the funding to get together every window. So, sometimes a couple years go by before I see these girls again, and it's like, oh, where's this person? Oh, they had a baby. And it's like, ah, what do you mean they had a baby? Like we need them to play center back.
Yeah.
And so it's like this whole, it's like this very, very interesting process each time. And so when I go, I literally just try to leave it better than how it was before. And I think, there's not much I can do. Like financially, I am not well off. I can barely pay my bills being a footballer. Like, so I think that the thing that I can leave for them is my impact as a leader and my impact on the field. And so every time I go, that's what I try to do. I try to help anybody with any advice that I can give, develop people, answer any questions that I possibly can. Because I mean, there have been others, but like currently I'm the only one who plays professionally on the squad. So it's like, even if people have a desire to do that, and some of the younger girls want to play in college, I went to two very good colleges. Like I've been very, very lucky. So I think my role there is compete, obviously, every time that we're there, have fun because it's such a good group. I get so excited every time I see all of them. But the third thing is just try to help in any possible way I can with whatever I have. And a lot of times that just comes down to knowledge.
No, I love that. I love also how you mentioned grit because I feel like that is a prominent thing that comes from like Americans like or players that played in the US compared to like the European players. They're more not to say they're softer, but I feel like we're so used to like the like super aggressive players. It's like because it's more physical in the US. So
Yes.
we're like it doesn't really phase us compared to the other European girls. Like they're dragging their feet. They're like, oh, like they're just so dramatic.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
fun, but
Yeah, I do feel like that's an actual thing. Like, and I think a lot of it is because in the way that US soccer has just kind of been built, it's like you don't need to be the most technical. You just need to get by. You need to beat your player, you need to score, like whatever. So you'll have girls that are just like really athletic, whereas the European culture is so much about developing technical talent. And I do think that's a privilege. I mean, I'm sure you guys would feel the same way. I think that's a privilege of having played in Europe and
yeah.
understanding that and having an appreciation for that, but also being in the States. And I kind of love the fact that players like us get to blend the two. And I think that that's really, really beneficial for your career. But I just think it's so important to not lose one or the other. And so I feel really lucky that I grew up in an American culture where it's like, I hit hard, I get that yellow card, I move on. Whatever, I did it on purpose. It's cool. I'm cool. We move. But also to be in an environment where it's like, okay, you can't just rely on the fact that you're going to knock this girl off the ball because she's gone. She's already gone now because they did a 1-2 and she's by you. So like how do you adjust in that regard? And I think that having the privilege of playing in multiple places, you just really have an appreciation for that. And I think, when I say the rest of the world, like you need to catch up, I feel like you're seeing that with the national team. Like they're falling, and it's because everyone's kind of they used to be just that technical side. Now they're getting to that physical side, and the US needs to develop that technical side so that, they're getting back to it. And so I think that that's like a really big privilege of having the chance to go somewhere else and understand that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I even feel like for us, like just being able to try play in different countries even helps us to like elevate our game. Because like I feel like even different countries in Europe play a little differently. Like
Yeah,
I feel like France compared to Denmark, complete difference, but at the same time, I feel like you're still elevating your game in different ways. So yeah. Yeah, so do you have any goals or aspirations that you want to accomplish before the end of your soccer career?
oh wow, that's such a good question. It's so funny because I feel like I've had this conversation with people. I'm 25, so my my career eventually will be coming to an end relatively soon. Because this isn't what I want to do for my entire life, and I want to end at a time where I feel like, I've done the things that I want to accomplish. Going into college, I never had any I don't even think I knew the awards that you could get in college. And then I was just like getting them, and it's such a testament to the team that you play on and the people that you play with. And every award I ever got, I just felt like my whole team should have gotten that. Like I've never felt like, oh, I solely deserved that. I've
Yeah.
always thought, oh, that could have gone to this person, that could have gone to this person, like whatever. And so I'm not big on awards. Like my mom took our playroom from when we were kids, and we all have accomplishments, and she's kind of made, we call it the trophy room, and she's kind of like, just found a place to put our junk. That's what she calls it. And my shelves are pretty decorated, and I am happy about those things, but in no way, shape, or form is that how I define my success or how my career has been. Um, because if that was the case, I probably would have stopped a long time ago. And so I
Yeah.
think for me, in terms of things I want to achieve, and I really hope you'll understand what I'm saying. I think you probably will because you guys are footballers too. It's this feeling. Like I'm going after that feeling where it's like, I did it. I did the things I wanted to accomplish. I feel like I can close this door. Like I've been playing since I was 4. Like that's 21 years of my life. Like I want to feel like I left everything behind, because that transition when you go into stop, like when you stop playing, is so difficult that I don't want to go into it with any regrets. So in terms of like my dreams and my goals, the way that I would define it is like I want to play consistently. I feel like I've constantly, every stage, I've gotten better, and I've gotten better, and I've gotten better. But I've had some ups and downs with that. Like when I think of college, that was probably the most consistent I've ever been, but I wasn't nearly as good in college as I am now. And so it's about playing at a really high level, but still finding that consistency. And some of that comes with the fact, I've bounced from team to team. So that does make it a little bit difficult. But like in terms of what do I want to accomplish, that's what I want to accomplish. I want to accomplish a feeling of consistency at a high level so that I can close the chapter, close the door, and say like, wow, I gave it everything I possibly could. I got exactly what I wanted out of it. And all the awards, all the trophies, whatever, literally just cherry on top. Like wasn't expecting it, didn't want it, and I think that's kind of how it's changed for me professionally. Like when I played in college and all of that, it was about accomplishing things and getting goals and winning, and we wanted to win the league and whatever. I think for me now, as a professional athlete, especially as time's gone on, it's about me as an individual. Like I want to feel like I performed well, I performed consistently, and I reached my maximum potential. And I think skill wise, I'm probably there, but it's about being consistent with that skill. And so that's kind of what I'm after. That's what I'm chasing. And I know that doesn't really make much sense, but I think as footballers, you probably understand what I'm talking about.
No, I
Yeah,
definitely agree.
go ahead. Go
Sorry,
ahead.
I definitely agree because we're 24, and I was also thinking like, oh, like when am I gonna stop playing soccer? Like I don't know, but I also was like, I want to see like how high I can go. Like I want to reach to my highest potential. So I definitely understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I understand as well. Like you kind of just want to get to the point where you're like, yeah, I did it. I'm like you're fulfilled
Yes.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, where you just feel like, okay, like I can check this box. And I
Mhm.
feel like my box right now is like the check mark is starting. Like it's starting, but like the final mark hasn't been placed. And I feel like, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And I feel like that's a check in and of itself. Like if I never reach that consistency, like then that means I'd already done it. Like that means I'd already been as consistent as I could have been.
Mhm.
Um, but part of me just feels like I've got a little bit more to give. And so that's what I'm trying to accomplish. Those are my dreams.
Oh, I
And
love
it's cool to like win along the way.
that. No, I love that. But Sydney, thank you for taking the time to be on the One Soccer Nation podcast today. I feel like we had a really great conversation, and you mentioned some really good things that I think could help future aspiring players out there. So yeah, thank you again.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks so much for having me, guys. I appreciate it.